Have you ever wondered what absolute power truly smells like? It isn't the scent of rare perfume or sacred incense. It's the stench of sweat trapped through countless winters, of dried blood soaking into white linen, of crushed flea carcasses beneath trembling fingertips. In 1491, all of Europe held its breath, watching the towers of Segovia, where a woman sat atop the world, yet chose to drown herself in filth, pain, and an isolation deeper than any dungeon. Her name was whispered with awe and fear: Isabella of Castile, queen above all queens. She ruled not only with steel and scripture, but with the scourge on her own back and a vow that makes history shudder: I will not change my shift until Granada falls. Day after day, month after month, in chambers thick with sanctity and decay, Isabella turned her own body into a battlefield between angels and demons. The linen yellowed with sweat, darkened with blood, alive with fleas crawling like silent curses. The court lived in terror. Europe gossiped in disbelief about the queen who never changed her undergarments, the icon of devotion carried to extremes, and the specter of rot lurking beneath royal splendor. Do you believe it? That the world once revered a queen for her stink and her relentless self-mortification? That the border between holiness and madness, between power and self-destruction, can be as thin as a dirty thread on a tattered shift? History isn't only written in conquests. It's carved in blood, tears, and the lingering odors that haunt the collective memory. Tonight, journey back with me to the 15th century. Tear open the doors between hell and heaven and stare into the raw truth. The greatest power sometimes rises from the vilest foundations. Dawn stumbles into the corridors of the Alcazar, splintering across old marble and dust. The bells are still ringing, relentless, insistent, as if trying to shake the centuries loose from these cold stone bones. You walk barefoot, carrying a bowl of rose water, the chill gnawing at your toes, the scent almost sickening in its sweetness, unable to mask what festers behind heavy doors. You pause, pulse thrumming in your ears. Through the wood, you hear Isabella's prayers, a river of Latin, flowing and broken, punctuated by the dry click of rosary beads, one for each hope, each sin, each drop of sweat and blood. When you enter, the smell hits you like a wall, a stench thick enough to choke, not just incense and wax, but the raw animal tang of suffering. She kneels there, head bowed, hair matted against skin, her linen shift stained yellow, brown, and crimson. Fleas crawl in frantic patterns across the fabric, each one a secret, a testament to her vow. The queen looks up at you, not with eyes of a saint, but with the wild, hollow gaze of someone fighting both heaven and hell within her own body. Her lips are cracked from endless muttering, her hands trembling not from age, but from fasting, from the long siege of her own flesh. In that moment, you see her not as a monarch, not even as a woman, but as a vessel, carrying all the weight of her faith, her country, and the war that rages both outside the palace walls and deep inside her skin. The air between you vibrates with unsaid things. History remembers this as strength, as devotion, as proof that God chooses His favorites through fire and rot. But you, standing with your bowl of water and your heart full of fear, wonder, is this holiness or is it madness? Is this power, or is it a slow, deliberate death performed for an audience of angels and ghosts? They say Isabella's linen became a relic, a holy artifact, so saturated with pain and prayer that it could ward off evil if only you dared touch it. But you see the truth? It is a shroud woven from threads of agony and hope, clinging to her as tightly as the myth itself clings to history. Outside, the world is changing. The last Muslim banners hang limp on the battlements of Granada. In a few months, Columbus will set sail, the world's edges dissolving into rumor and gold. But in this room, in this stagnant sacred air, time has stopped. There is only the Queen, her vow, and the silence that grows thicker with every unanswered prayer. What will survive when the bells fall silent? The myth or the woman beneath it? The story or the stench? In the end, perhaps there is no difference. Perhaps the line between sanctity and decay was never meant to be clear. You stand in the Queen's presence, every instinct screaming at you to look away, to breathe through your mouth, to let your mind drift anywhere but here. But there is nowhere else. You are chained to this moment by birth, by duty, by the silent expectations of a world that worships suffering and calls it grace. Outside, Segovia is waking, a city caught between fear and hope, rumors swirling like morning fog. They say the Queen is holy, touched by God. They say the siege has turned her flesh to parchment and her will to iron. But inside these walls, stripped of myth and candlelight, Isabella is just a woman undone by faith, clinging to her rituals the way a drowning soul clings to driftwood. Her voice falters in prayer, breaking into whispers only you can hear. "Do you see them?" she murmurs, eyes locked on some invisible agony. "Saints, angels, the old kings, watching me, testing me." You do not answer. You only kneel, set the basin by her feet, and retreat to the shadow where servants belong. The air presses down, so heavy you can taste it, so thick you feel it clinging to your skin. It reeks of everything hidden and denied, fear, rot, the slow unraveling of flesh under linen that has not known water or sun for months. Some nights, when the castle is silent, you dream of washing her shift, of dipping it in cold river water, scrubbing away the stains, letting it billow clean and white in the wind. But you wake with guilt, as if you have sinned against her vow, as if even in your dreams you are not allowed to touch what has become sacred through suffering. The rumors spread through the court like a fever. They whisper in corners behind tapestries, their voices trembling. The Queen is blessed. The Queen is mad. She carries the fate of Spain in her bones and on her skin. You hear them all, and you know the truth is harder, stranger, sadder than any story told by torchlight. Each day the siege drags on. Isabella grows thinner, her eyes more distant. She talks to shadows, fasts until her hands shake, lashes herself until the blood dries and cracks on her back. Her linen shift, once white as snow, becomes a patchwork of old wounds and new beginnings, a tapestry woven from pain, from a faith that has no patience for comfort or doubt. Sometimes you see her gaze turn outward, past you, past the walls, past the city. Perhaps she sees the end of the siege, the banners falling, the bells of victory. Or maybe she only sees more darkness, another vow, the sacrifice, another myth waiting to be born from her torment. You wonder what history will remember. The Queen who never changed her shift, or the woman who carried the smell of sanctity and decay as both shield and burden. You wonder if anyone will remember the girl who brought her water, who watched her become legend by inches, by stains, by silent prayers that vanished into stone. In this palace of faith and filth, there are no easy answers, only the echo of bells, the scratch of fleas beneath linen, the endless question lingering in the silence. Is this what holiness feels like? Or is it simply what's left when the world demands miracles and all you have to offer is your own suffering? She kneels until her knees are numb, the cold marble biting through flesh and bone. Every morning begins like this, half prayer, half battle. Inside her skull, thoughts tumble and collide. God is near, God is far. Sometimes his voice is a thunderclap. Sometimes it is nothing but the aching silence after midnight, a silence so deep it threatens to swallow her whole. She remembers the vows, the ancient words pressed into her mouth by bishops and kings. She remembers her father's eyes, hard, distant, measuring her worth not in smiles, but in victories and obedience. She remembers her mother's hands trembling as they braided Isabella's hair, warning her, the world devours the weak. Even saints must bleed. But saints, Isabella thinks, are remembered. Pain is remembered. Suffering is the language God speaks, the price of power, the crucible that forges legends. She tightens her grip on the rosary until her knuckles ache. I will not falter, not while Granada stands, not while God is watching. The linen clings to her like a second skin, filthy and sacred. Each itch, each bite from the fleas is a test, a reminder that her body is not hers, not anymore. It belongs to history, to Spain, to the one who hung upon the cross and turned agony into salvation. She feels the eyes of the court, the whispers behind doors. Some call her holy. Some say she is mad. Both are correct, she thinks. To be queen is to be a myth long before you are a corpse. Outside, the world waits for her to crack, to fall, to admit that she is only flesh and blood. But she has learned how to turn flesh into armor, how to transform blood into prophecy. The pain makes her powerful. The stench makes her untouchable. In the quiet moments when no one is watching, she lets herself dream of water, clean and cold, rushing over her skin, of sunlight, of the simple weight of a fresh garment, of laughter, not as a weapon, but as a release. But dreams are for lesser souls. Isabella buries them beneath more prayers, more silence, more suffering. Let my body rot if it must, she whispers. Let my name outlive this stench. Let my vow become the steel that binds a broken kingdom. Her vision blurs. She sees saints with bleeding feet, angels with empty eyes, her own face dissolving into legend. She is not afraid. Or perhaps she is only too far gone to remember what fear feels like. Somewhere in the distance, bells begin to toll again. Another day begins, and with it, the cycle of pain, power, and prayer that will not end until Granada falls or until her body does. She loses track of days. Time pools in the corners of the chapel, sticky and stagnant. The world beyond these walls could be burning or blooming or nothing at all. She kneels until her bones groan and her muscles tremble. Each day the pain feels different, sharper, more insistent, like something alive gnawing inside her skin. She mutters prayers that dissolve into moans. She fasts until even the taste of bread is a memory. She dreams of saints whose faces she cannot name, saints who whisper riddles in the dark, whose wounds weep not blood, but ink-black water. Her flesh rebels. Sores open along her back where the whip bites deepest, then fester, then close again, only to split anew the next night. The linen shift has fused to her skin, rough as bark, crawling with life. Each flea that bites is a tiny voice, needling at her resolve. Is this holy, or is it simply madness? But she refuses to listen. She cannot afford to listen. She imagines the enemy beyond the walls, Granada's towers rising against the morning sun, the scent of oranges in the courtyards, Muslim women bathing in marble pools, their laughter echoing through gardens forbidden to her. She hates their cleanliness. She envies it. Her God demands more. She must be dirtier, holier, more broken than anyone before her. Only then will victory taste of heaven. Some nights she feels her mind drifting, memories unspooling, faces of children dead from plague, her husband's hand heavy on her shoulder, the eyes of the Inquisition judges cold and glittering, promising salvation or fire. She wonders if anyone will remember her suffering, or will they remember only the stench, the bled-through linen, the silence she carried like a crown? The court grows quieter. Even the boldest nobles now keep their distance. When servants approach, they bow low and hold their breath. Isabella sees disgust in their eyes, but also awe and, deep down, a terror that this is what holiness might truly require. To be queen is to be alone. To be a saint is to be abandoned. She clings to the vow like a lifeline, repeating it until it drowns out the hunger, the itching, the ache. Not until Granada falls. Not until the cross rises above the Alhambra. Not until the world itself changes shape beneath my will. She is no longer a woman. She is a relic, already halfway to legend, halfway to dust. Her body is her weapon. Her suffering is her legacy. Let them talk. Let them recoil. Let them fear me. Let my agony birth a new world. And still, the bells toll, summoning her back from the brink. One more day, one more hour, one more prayer scrawled in blood and sweat and the stink of unending faith. Dawn bleeds pale blue through the stained glass, casting long, bruised shadows across the stone floor. The air is so cold it burns, every breath a reminder that winter still rules these halls. Far away, cathedral bells hammer out a relentless rhythm. 1, 2, 3. Each toll a summons, a warning, a memory. Bare feet touch frozen marble. A servant girl clutching a basin of rose water to her chest as if it might shield her from what waits beyond the heavy door. Her steps are small and careful, her lips pressed into a thin, bloodless line. She is no stranger to fear, but today it coils tighter than ever, sinking into her bones. They say power shines bright, gold and clean. But here, in the gray corridors of the Alcazar, power has a smell, a taste, a weight that can crush the heart of even the faithful. This morning, as every morning, the Queen's chamber is a fortress of silence and suffering. She pauses, listening. Through oak and iron, Isabella's voice seeps, a tide of Latin prayers, half song, half plea, broken only by the faint, compulsive rattle of rosary beads. There is desperation in the rhythm, as if each bead pressed between her fingers is a small, private confession. The servant closes her eyes, summoning courage. She nudges the door open, and the stench strikes her first. Thick, sour, a mixture of incense and rot, of sanctity, gone to seed. Inside, Isabella kneels before a crucifix taller than herself. Her linen shift, once white, is mottled yellow and brown, crusted with old blood and darker stains that defy naming. Fleas move in tiny, mindless constellations along the seams. For a heartbeat, the queen does not look up. Her head is bowed, lips moving in ceaseless prayer, shoulders quivering with exhaustion. When at last her eyes find the servant, there is nothing regal left, only hunger and the haunted clarity of someone who has traded everything for the chance at salvation. In this moment, the world outside, Granada's towers, the restless armies, the promise of spring, might as well be another planet. Here, there is only pain and faith and the soft, persistent scratching of bodies and linen, holy and unwashed. Power, the servant thinks, is not a crown. Sometimes it is a wound that will never close. The room is a tomb, cold and close, heavy with incense that does nothing to mask the truth. Isabella's knees are raw, pressed into stone worn smooth by repetition, by months of kneeling, pleading, bargaining with a silent God. Her fingers clutch the rosary so tightly her knuckles whiten, each bead a tiny anchor holding her in place. She whispers names, saints, martyrs, angels whose faces blur behind her eyelids. She sees them in the darkness behind her eyes, their mouths sewn shut with gold thread, their wounds open and glistening, always watching, always judging. Grant me strength, she mutters, voice rasped and thin. Make me holy enough to suffer what must be suffered, pure enough to carry Spain to salvation. She no longer prays for victory. Victory is a rumor now, echoing from distant walls and foreign tongues. What she prays for is endurance, a way to survive the slow, grinding agony of her own vow. The linen shift clings to her body, sticky with dried sweat and the remnants of old wounds. Sometimes, in the hours before dawn, she feels the fabric fuse with her skin, cannot tell where she ends and the garment begins. The fleas are constant, a crawling, living crown. Their bites are sharp, insistent. She welcomes them, every sting, every itch, a sign that her body is still a battlefield, still worthy of God's notice. Her mind drifts. She remembers her childhood, her mother's distant kindness, the cold lessons of court life. She remembers the plague, the way death moved through the halls with quiet, patient hands. She remembers how the filthiest servants survived, how the cleanest nobles died. She wonders if holiness is just another kind of filth, a rot that grows where no one dares to look. Her prayers dissolve into silence. She sees visions now, saints whose bones poke through flesh, a Christ with eyes as hollow as her own. They do not comfort her. They watch, they wait. Isabella begins to rock back and forth, the rosary sliding through her hands. Her lips move in a rhythm older than language, each word a stitch in the veil that now separates her from the world. She is alone, more alone than any monarch before her, alone in her suffering, alone in her faith. The servant hovers near the door, waiting for permission to approach, terrified to disturb this ritual of pain and longing. But Isabella does not see her. She sees only the endless corridor of her vow, stretching onward, stone, shadow, suffering without end. In the quiet, her soul unravels one thread at a time. Time has lost its shape. Days stretch and snap, indistinguishable from nights. Sometimes, Isabella thinks she can hear the stones whispering beneath her knees. Sometimes, she is sure the sound is only the blood pulsing in her ears. The prayers come harder now, each one dragged from a throat dry with fasting and fever. Shadows flicker on the walls. Saints with broken faces, angels with hands of bone, old kings clutching their crowns like shields. They crowd the corners of the chapel, silent and accusing. In her visions, the siege has ended, then begun again. She stands in endless twilight before the gates of Granada, her shift hanging in rags, the world behind her reduced to ashes. She hears armies screaming, not in triumph, but in hunger. She sees the Virgin's eyes filled with tears, not for Spain, but for her. Sometimes she feels the hands of the dead on her shoulders, heavy and cold. Sometimes she sees her own face in the dark glass of the altar, gaunt, wild, half mad. She wonders if this is what sainthood means. Not peace, not salvation, but an endless grinding of the self into dust. Outside her chamber, the castle is quieter each day. Servants move like ghosts, speaking in low voices, careful not to let the Queen's name touch the air. When they speak of her at all, it is with a shiver. She has become a relic, they say, a saint made of pain. No one dares enter the chapel except the girl with the rose water, her hands always trembling, her eyes always wide with the knowledge that she is closer to death than anyone else in Segovia. Rumors ooze through the halls. Some say the Queen is dying. Some say she has been possessed by God or by something darker. A few believe she is the only one in Spain who truly understands what it means to suffer for a cause, and they envy her. But envy is cold comfort. No one can share her vow or her burden. They can only wait and wonder and fear what will be left when the siege finally ends. And Isabella, still kneeling, still bleeding, still wrapped in her rotting shift, knows only this: every day is a new crucifixion. Every prayer is a stone in the tomb she builds around herself. The world outside is shrinking, the legend swelling in its place. She is not a queen, not a woman, not even a martyr. She is a wound, open and shining, worshipped and shunned. In the dark, the bells begin to toll once more. Another day of suffering, another day closer to victory or to oblivion. The day the news comes, it arrives on a river of sound, shouts, footsteps, the wild clangor of bells driven mad with joy. Granada has fallen. The last banner of the old world lowered before the cross. The war, the prayers, the waiting, over. The court erupts in celebration. Cups are raised, flags unfurled, priests weep at the altar. Servants race through the corridors, calling out the Queen's victory. They carry garlands, pour wine, and sing until their voices crack. But inside the chapel, all is still. Isabella hears the bells as if from underwater, each peal a blow against the fragile shell she has built around herself. Her body is numb, cold, and burning all at once. She tries to rise, but her knees buckle. She clings to the crucifix, breath shaking, eyes blurring. The linen shift, her armor, her prison, clings tighter than ever, stiff with old blood and sweat. Each movement peels it from her skin in slow, sticky agony. She remembers her vow. She remembers why she made it. And for the first time, the reason feels lost, buried under months of pain, hallucination, and the quiet erosion of hope. A servant enters, uncertain, almost afraid. "My queen," the girl whispers, "Granada is yours. Spain is yours. The world awaits you." Isabella does not answer. She stands, swaying, and strips the shift from her body. The sound it makes is soft and sickening, like tearing parchment. The garment drops to the floor, so stiff and stained it barely folds, a relic and a horror in one. She is naked now, but not free. She feels every eye in Spain upon her, every voice shouting her name, every rumor already twisting into legend. The pain, the filth, the loneliness, none of it lifts. If anything, the emptiness grows larger. She looks into the servant's eyes, searching for something, pity, relief, maybe even love. But the girl only bows her head, retreating from the stench and the sadness, fleeing back to the world of the living. Outside, the bells ring on, reckless and bright. Inside, Isabella wraps herself in a new garment, clean, cold, untouched by history. It brings her no comfort. She sits at the edge of her bed, listening to the chaos beyond her window. Spain celebrates, but the Queen's victory tastes of ashes and silence. Alone in her chamber, Isabella weeps for the first time in months, not from pain nor from joy, but from the terrifying suspicion that she has won nothing at all. History remembers her as a conqueror, a saint, a queen whose vow outlasted cities and kings. They write songs of her victory, paint icons of her suffering, kneel before the memory of a woman who made her body an altar and her agony a legend. But behind the tapestries, beneath the marble and gold, another story remains, one that no chronicle dares to speak. A woman alone in a silent room, haunted by prayers that never found answers, by wounds that never truly healed. The bells that once sang of triumph now ring hollow in memory, each note a reminder that power is never gentle and that devotion can be a cage built by trembling hands. The world moves on, forgetting the stench, the sorrow, the slow rot of faith carried too far. Only the myth endures, cleaned and crowned, paraded before the generations, a shield against the fear that beneath all greatness there is only flesh, only loneliness, only a girl who once knelt before God and found only silence in return. So let them celebrate, let the bells toll and the banners fly. But somewhere in the cold heart of history, the truth endures. The greatest thrones are built not of gold, but of wounds. And sometimes the price of sainthood is nothing but an endless, echoing emptiness. Fade out, silence, just the memory of a vow and the darkness it left behind.